what is the item?
6E.
6E.
Adoption
We're going to
of-
move up at this point.
Correct. Adoption of resolution authorizing the mayor to sign a memorandum of understanding regarding the formation and implementation of sister city relations between the Village of Wadi Faqeen, Palestine Territories, and the City of Alameda.
Okay, and city attorney?
So, Mayor and Council, we received late this afternoon correspondence from the Israeli Consulate General in San Francisco raising a number of issues with our the consideration of the Memorandum of Understanding, some political but some legal, and questioning whether there was a potential violation of California state law. And we simply did not have, the City Attorney's Office simply did not have the time to investigate this, look into it, and be able to provide you with recommendations, potentially maybe make some modifications to the language along that line. Normally, in a situation like this, we would actually pull the item, but in recognition that there were likely to be a number of persons in attendance at tonight's council meeting and the lateness of the hour to pull it, the decision was made instead to go ahead and continue it, but let you know right up front that the City Attorney's Office is not recommending that you approve this Memorandum of Understanding tonight, and rather, if necessary, or if you would like, you can direct staff to look into these issues and come back. Part of the problem with this is, as you know, sister cities are not political, they're educational, economic, cultural exchanges, and so there is a concern that we be careful that we not venture into the political side of this. And one of the issues raised by the Consulate General or Deputy Consulate General was that the sponsor, who is very prominent in our community and well respected, the United Methodist Church, and their leadership are very active also in boycott, divestment, and sanctions. It's a movement against Israel, and they have very strong concerns about that. And so we would want to make sure that the city was not colored with that initiative if we choose to go forward on a sister city basis. So, and there's also an issue because of then the closeness when we looked at it a little closer this afternoon, that we want to make sure that there's no issue with violation of the Establishment Clause because it is the United Methodist Church that is the sponsor as opposed to just a group of citizens. So we just want to make sure that all of those things are clearly separated and we're not violating any laws. So with that, it's up to council whether you want to hear people today consider this item or whether you want to not have people wait till the end of the meeting to provide comments.
Vice Mayor?
This is a question for our city attorney. It was one of the issues raised, I think it was AB 2844, which was sponsored by Bloom, passed, I think, a couple years ago, the contracts and UNRWA issue?
Yes, that's correct.
Thank you.
Can you
And the email is public
translate that for
information.
us?
Oh, so you
Sorry.
could actually go.
Yes, the email is public information. Again, it came in late, so it's on the
It's been uploaded.
it's uploaded on the agenda.
As
So
under
you all-
correspondence as
Yes.
attachments.
And so,
Can you translate
And
the state law?
could you explain more about the state law of 2844? I believe that was the number. What that really means in layman's terms so that
it's
people
a
understand?
contract. My understanding is it has to do with the contracting issue.
Yeah, it's actually, this is one of the things, we just didn't have time to do a lot of research into
Okay.
this. So all I can tell you is it has to do with public contracting and no discrimination and those kinds of issues.
All right, so at this point, look, we do have 16.
make a
yes,
suggestion?
Member Ashcraft?
So, well, that's sort of late-breaking news to all of us because the council, well, at least this council member certainly didn't know about that ahead of time. But I do feel that we've kept a lot of people in this audience out here till almost 9 o'clock. I think we owe them the respect of speaking. I would not feel right sending them home without being heard. That's my opinion.
So there are 16 speakers. If we're going to have them be heard tonight, then I think that in regards to your comment earlier this evening would be that I was happy to move it up to give the input and let council weigh in if we want to then have these if we wanted to postpone it or if we want to weigh in, however we want to respond to that information. However, in regards to having 16 speakers speak in front of these other items, that actually was not what we'd
Yeah.
agreed to, because you'd raised that
Yeah,
other concern
well,
earlier.
And again, it's always a little difficult to know what you're agreeing to when you don't know what you're agreeing to. And I think, what had we said, Mayor, 15 minutes
10.
for this
Right,
item?
so that's not.
So, I mean, we could ask people if they would be willing to limit their remarks to less than 3 minutes. We could send them all home. We could do something in between.
Well, they're at the end of towards the end of the agenda normally, but in regards to this item, let me hear from some other council members. What would you like to do?
I guess my concern is there's speakers that were planning to speak on the merits of what was posted, and now there are legal challenges which could result in a different an outcome, and could also change what their approach may be. My concern is, if there are legal challenges, I haven't even read the letter, but I did hear concerns earlier today. So I just, I don't really feel like we're going to have a valuable conversation over whatever the issue is going to be if there is a legal challenge. That's my concern. I mean, we could be having people weigh in on something when the issue is kind of a moving target.
Any other council members? Member Mataressi?
Just a question to the city attorney on the substance of what we have here in the MOU. It doesn't reference Buena Vista Methodist Church as the sponsor. The city's agent is the Alameda Sister City Association. Is that...
Well, it's my understanding that the sponsor has to be an organization in the community that's willing to step up and do this, and it is the Buena Vista United Methodist Church, and Reverend Yoshi is listed as one of the sponsoring parties, and the projects that are being talked about are actually, some of them have already been started by the United Methodist Church.
I think this needs... if this could materially change the language of what's being discussed, I'd hate to discuss this and then have people come back for something completely different based on what the city attorney finds out with regard to the law.
And I would concur with that it's not appropriate to have us hear from 20-some speakers when we ourselves actually don't have, none of us know, without having that's why we have a city attorney to brief us on items like this, all of us. Member Odie?
I mean, because I would just ask, I mean, what's the process, though, procedurally? I mean, if we table it, does it have to come back identical, or can it come back? I mean, because I think parliamentary-wise, I think motion to table may be the proper...
I guess I'm looking for a little bit of direction. If the council wants to try to continue on forming some kind of a relationship, sister city relationship with Wadi Fakin, that we would look into what the issues are, have discussions with the sister city organization, and see if there are some parameters that we could put together that would allow something along that line. If council is thinking this is more of a problem, I mean, I'm waiting for you to tell me. That would be the process, though.
Did you want to finish,
Well,
Member
I
Odie?
mean,
sorry.
I mean, just to follow up on that, so if we were to give you direction, it almost sounds like we would have to have some type of discussion on the merits. I mean,
Well,
I don't know.
And you're right. I mean, I just, frankly, I don't know enough about it yet either, because we haven't had the time to do any investigation and research into this. But it could be that we would come back to the council and we would say, okay, this is what we think we could do for a sister city relationship. These are our recommendations, and then you could give us feedback on that, or maybe we could work something out that we think legally satisfies the concerns that have been raised, and then council could decide. And I just don't know how to answer that at this point.
Question.
Member Ashcraft?
So, okay, I've just located the email, so I can see, actually, Mayor Spencer, it appears that you reached out to the Israeli consulate for their input. I'm not a real great speed reader, and this is kind of a long email, so I don't even feel ready to decide how we should approach this tonight, but I think, maybe it's just an opportunity to regroup. So,
Madam Mayor, could I address you since you raised
I'm sorry,
a
it's not
question about
appropriate at this
me and my
time.
church?
well, yeah,
It's actually not
Yeah.
this is a rather unusual
Well,
circumstance.
I want to clarify something.
I'm
The
sorry,
sys-
I'm sorry, it's not appropriate at this time. We're not taking public speakers. It's still council's comments.
Okay, is there going to
So
be any comment
That's
before
what
you
we're
make your decision?
deciding. That is actually the
Okay.
issue we're deciding, whether or not we're going to hear from the
I
public.
just want to clarify some things that have been
I'm
said.
sorry, it's not appropriate at this time. That's actually one of the issues we will be deciding. Thank you.
Well,
Could you take your seat, please?
Yeah, I will.
Thank you.
yeah, I'm troubled. I think that this is something that we should hear from both sides. There's some very compelling arguments on both sides. And so I don't want to just stifle the discussion. Perhaps tonight is not the night to have it, but I would say that given the fact that I believe I heard our city attorney say that because the one issue raised is that the sponsor, the Buena Vista United Methodist Church, is very active in this BDS movement. This is one of the issues raised by the Israeli consulate. I do feel it's at least fair to hear from Reverend Yoshi, but that's one woman's opinion. And then council, we can figure out what to do from here, or at
So-
all.
Vice Mayor?
So this is a question for our legal counsel. You said that you wanted direction on whether or not we're going to proceed. My concern is I haven't even read the letter in full. So
We didn't
I
know there
don't,
was a letter.
yeah, I didn't know there was a letter until tonight. So I almost feel like we're kind of prematurely being asked to make a decision about something when, we have 4 attorneys up here. And I think, and we do respect our city attorneys, insights into the legal analysis of this. That said, I understand, and I do want to state that, what I heard was basically that there are concerns that have been raised in the letter. There are concerns that have been raised in the letter, and to Reverend Yoshi's point about his statements, I would also want to make sure that if there are issues that are being put forward, I think, is there a mechanism for the city attorney's office to reach out to the involved parties to get clarification?
Yes, absolutely. That's what we would do if council wants us to proceed with this. And again, I apologize. What we would have typically done was just pulled this item, but we just felt that because it was such a late in time and we knew people were going to be coming, that didn't seem like a good solution.
Understood.
Member Mataressi?
I believe in citizen-to-citizen diplomacy and the mission of the Sister City Association. But I would like to move that this council directs the city attorney to review the concerns that were expressed, or not the concerns, the inferences that we were in violation of state law and other legal exposures that we have with the way this is presented tonight, and provide us with an opinion, and that we table this until the next meeting. And at that time,
Tell she can come back.
Information.
well, we can't have this open-ended.
The agenda's.
Right,
I'm
but
sorry,
the
City
agenda
Manager.
for the next
Oh,
meeting goes out tomorrow.
Right.
Okay.
Unless you're
In a
unless
timely
we're just-
manner, so that we can, so that this, an opinion and a compliant MOU can be presented.
And
So did you want to make a motion?
And
I
I-
just,
That was
yeah,
a
that
motion.
was a
All right.
motion.
And actually, if I
Member-
could
Member
add
Ashcraft?
to that, so I am aware that the city of Sacramento, California, has a sister city relationship with Bethlehem in the Palestinian territory. So perhaps in your research, Madam City Mayor, City Attorney, you can look into how that was
So-
accomplished.
So is
Vice
the,
Mayor?
so is the question then to look into the difference between cities versus settlements, or?
Oh, it's not a settlement, it's a village.
No,
No, I understand that, but but Bethlehem is a city. We're looking at a village that is in a settlement zone. So
I'm not
I'm
sure
trying
that's
to
the salient point,
understand-
but what.
But I would agree
I'm
that
just-
if
I'm
you're
just trying
looking
to, I'm
into
trying
it-
to understand what the question is. Is the
what
question just
what another,
any?
well, if presumably Sacramento was able to do that without raising the concern of the Israeli consulate,
Mhm.
so how might that have been accomplished? I don't know what the distinguishing
not-
facts are,
But
but
that's not part of the motion. That's
No,
just
the-
a friendly piece of
yeah,
advice.
exactly.
Okay, I'm
I
trying.
think the city attorney can
Mem-
do her research. But I was just curious, you had suggested through the chair, Vice Mayor, that the city attorney reach out to representatives on both sides. Was that an earlier
So,
suggestion?
no, my question was whether or not, so this was a previous question, which was whether or not through the process of doing the analysis, the city attorney's office could hear from other parties to get clarification. And the answer,
That's
I believe, was
appropriate, I
yes.
think. Yeah.
Yes,
And I think pointedly to reach out to Reverend Yoshi. To clarify
absolutely,
whatever is
absolutely, yes.
troubling people.
Member Odie?
I mean, I was just going to say, I mean, we don't know whether, how long is that sister city relationship with Sacramento? I mean, not that it's
A number of years.
just positive, but I think the BDS legislation was, I think, 2 years ago, maybe. So,
Correct.
I mean,
That's
it could be that
relatively
that
new.
was,
That's a
that
good
was
point.
implemented before that, so, and, you know, we have the whole issue of,
We're certainly not afraid of
Yeah.
gathering
So the
information.
attorney
Yeah.
can
So,
look into that.
Anybody
Good
want
point.
to second my motion?
I
Second.
will.
There's a second.
okay.
Member Odie, you
I mean,
could
just
go
to
ahead and
finish,
make
if we're
your
going to
comments.
hear
Yes, of
people, I'd
course.
like to hear everybody if we're going to, rather than just hear one, but I mean, if the consensus is to, you know, learn more about this, you know, then I would go along with the consensus.
All right, so there's a motion and a second by Vice Mayor. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Carries unanimously. Thank you. So all of you that are here for this item, we will not be taking public comment on it this evening. The attorney will be researching it, reaching out to parties at her discretion, at the city attorney's discretion, and then at some point it'll circle back to us in a reasonable amount of time. So I'm going to call for a short recess. It's 9 o'clock, so we'll take a brief recess until approximately 10 minutes after. Is that good? Thank you.